There's a pair of shoes that Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano saw in his nightmares for 30 years. Not expensive shoes, not designer shoes, just regular work boots, brown leather, worn at the heels. The kind of boots a working man wears every day, because they're comfortable and they last. Those boots belonged to a man named Johnny Keys Simone, and on December 2nd, 1985, Sammy Gravano was ordered to kill him. This is not a story about mob violence that feels justified, not a story about a gangster getting what he deserved, or a drug dealer who knew the risks, or a rival who'd signed up for a violent life. This is a story about an innocent man, a family man, a guy who worked construction, paid his bills, loved his wife, never hurt anyone. This is the story that made Sammy Gravano question everything he'd ever believed about the life. The story he told interviewers decades later, with tears in his eyes. The story he said, more than any other in his blood-soaked career, made him understand that what he was doing wasn't just criminal, it was evil. If something made me quit the mob, Sammy said in a 1997 interview, his voice breaking, if there was one moment where I knew I'd crossed a line I could never uncross, it was Johnny Keys. That hit destroyed something in me. That hit showed me what I really was, and I've lived with it every day since. This is the story of Johnny Keys, and the last thing he said before he died. December 1985. Salvatore Gravano was 40 years old, a captain in the Gambino crime family, one of John Gotti's most trusted associates. By his own later admission, Sammy had participated in 19 murders by this point in his career. 19 men dead because of Sammy's actions. Most of those murders Sammy could justify to himself. They were mob guys, drug dealers, people who'd signed up for a violent life and understood the risks, people who, as Sammy put it, knew the rules and broke them anyway. But Johnny Keys was different. Simone was 35 years old. He worked construction, running a small crew that did renovation work on buildings in Brooklyn and Queens. He had a wife, Margaret, and 2 kids, ages 8 and 6. He went to church most Sundays. He coached his son's Little League team. He was, by every measure, a regular guy living a regular life. The only thing that connected Johnny Simone to the mob was his last name and his face. Johnny looked almost identical to his cousin, Thomas Simone, who was a soldier in the DeCavalcante crime family in New Jersey. Thomas Simone, also called Johnny Keys by people who knew him, which created confusion, had stolen money from a Gambino family operation, about $50,000. And when confronted about it, Thomas had done the worst possible thing. He'd run, disappeared, gone into hiding. The Gambino family wanted their money back. More than that, they wanted to make an example. You don't steal from the Gambinos. You don't run when confronted. You face the consequences, but they couldn't find Thomas Simone. He'd gone deep underground, changed his appearance, maybe left New York entirely. That's when someone in the Gambino organization, and it's never been confirmed who, made a terrible suggestion. We can't find Thomas, but we know where his cousin John lives. John Simone, the construction guy. They look alike. Same build, same face, similar age. What if we grab John? Make Thomas think we got him. Thomas will come out of hiding to save his cousin. It was a plan based on mistaken identity, on using an innocent man as bait, on the assumption that family loyalty would draw Thomas out. Paul Castellano, the boss of the Gambino family at the time, approved the plan. He signed off on grabbing John Simone, holding him, waiting for Thomas to surface. Nobody mentioned killing John Simone. At least, not initially. The plan was simple. Grab John, hold him somewhere, let word spread through the underworld that the Gambinos had Johnny Keys, wait for Thomas to try to negotiate or rescue his cousin. But plans change, especially in the mob. On December 1st, 1985, Sammy Gravano was called to a meeting with John Gotti. This was 2 weeks before Gotti would orchestrate the murder of Paul Castellano and take over as boss of the Gambino family. But at this moment, Gotti was still a captain, and Sammy was his most reliable guy. "We got a situation," Gotti told Sammy. "This Thomas Simone thing, the guy who stole from us." "He's still in the wind?" Sammy asked. "Yeah, but we got an idea. His cousin, John Simone, construction guy, lives in Brooklyn. Looks just like Thomas. Same face, same build. We grab the cousin, word gets out, Thomas will come looking." Sammy nodded slowly. "And if Thomas doesn't come looking?" Gotti shrugged. "Then we got leverage. We hold the cousin until Thomas pays what he owes. And if Thomas still doesn't show?" Gotti's face went cold. "Then we make the cousin pay for what Thomas did. Can't let people think we're soft. Can't let people think they can steal from us and hide behind their family." "The cousin's not in the life," Sammy said carefully. "He's a civilian. He's family to Thomas. Close enough." Sammy should have pushed back. Should have said this was wrong. That killing an innocent man violated every rule about civilians. That it would bring heat they didn't need. But Sammy didn't push back. Because in 1985, Sammy Gravano was a soldier who followed orders. Because questioning your captain wasn't something you did. Because 19 murders had already numbed something inside Sammy that should have objected. "When?" Sammy asked. "Tomorrow, December 2nd. Grab him after work. Bring him to the warehouse in Queens. We'll hold him there, see if Thomas makes contact. And if he doesn't, then you do what needs to be done." The meeting ended. Sammy went home. Lay awake that night thinking about John Simone, a construction worker, a family man, someone who'd never done anything to the Gambino family except have the misfortune of being related to someone who stole money. Sammy told himself it would be fine. Thomas would surface. They'd get their money back. John would go home to his family. No harm done. But deep down, Sammy knew better. December 2nd, 1985, was a Monday. John Simone left his house in Brooklyn at 6:30 a.m., same as every weekday, kissed his wife Margaret goodbye, told his kids to be good at school, drove his truck to a job site in Queens, where his crew was renovating an apartment building. John worked all day, normal day. He joked with his crew, ate lunch from a sandwich shop down the block, made plans to take his family to see Christmas lights that weekend. At 5 p.m., John packed up his tools, told his crew he'd see them tomorrow, got in his truck. That's when a van pulled up beside him at a red light. 3 men got out. 2 of them were Gambino associates. One of them was Sammy Grevino. They surrounded John's truck. One of them pulled a gun. "Get out of the truck," the man said. "Don't make noise. Don't make this hard." John looked at the 3 men, looked at the gun. His hands started shaking. "I don't have any money," John said. "I got maybe $40 in my wallet. Please, just take it. Don't hurt me." "We don't want your money," Sammy said. "Get out of the truck, now." John got out. The men grabbed him, pushed him into the van. John tried to resist, tried to pull away. "What is this? What do you want? I didn't do anything." They forced him into the van, bound his hands with zip ties, covered his mouth with duct tape, drove him to a warehouse in Queens owned by one of Gotti's front companies. Inside the warehouse, they sat John in a chair, removed the tape from his mouth. John was crying now. "Please, please, I have a family. I have kids." "Whatever you think I did, you got the wrong guy. My name is John Simone. I work construction. I'm not whoever you think I am." Sammy looked at him. "You're Thomas Simone's cousin." "Thomas? Yeah, he's my cousin. But I haven't seen him in months. We're not close. Whatever Thomas did, I got nothing to do with it. Thomas stole money from us. $50,000. He's hiding. We can't find him. I don't know where he is. I swear to God, I don't know. But he'll come looking for you," Sammy said. "When he hears that we got you, he'll surface. He'll try to make a deal." John's eyes went wide. "You're using me as bait? For Thomas?" "Something like that. But I got nothing to do with what Thomas did. I'm just a construction worker. I got a wife and kids." Sammy didn't respond, just walked away, left John sitting in the chair, hands bound, terrified. They held John in that warehouse for 6 hours, made calls to various underworld contacts, let word spread that the Gambinos had Johnny Keys in custody, waited for Thomas Simone to reach out. Nothing. No calls, no messages, no sign that Thomas even knew or cared that his cousin had been grabbed. Around 11 p.m., John Gotti showed up at the warehouse, looked at John Simone, still sitting in the chair, still bound, still crying quietly. "Thomas didn't call," Gotti said to Sammy. "No." "You explained to this guy why he's here?" "Yeah. He says he doesn't know where Thomas is. Says they're not close." Gotti walked over to John. "Your cousin stole from us. You understand that?" John nodded. "I understand, but I got nothing to do with it. I don't even talk to Thomas. We see each other at family weddings, funerals. That's it. Please, I have kids. My wife doesn't know where I am. She's probably calling the police right now, thinking I got in an accident or something. Your cousin owes us money. He owes us respect. And since he won't face us himself, you're gonna have to pay his debt. I don't have $50,000. I'm a construction worker. I got maybe $5,000 in savings. You can have it. All of it. Just let me go home." Gotti looked at Sammy. "He's no use to us. Thomas doesn't care enough to come out. And this guy's got no money." So Sammy felt something cold settle in his stomach. "So what do we do?" "What do you think we do?" Gotti said. "We can't let him go. He's seen our faces. He knows who we are, and we can't look weak. Can't have people saying we grabbed some guy and then just let him go because his cousin didn't care. So we hold him longer. Give Thomas more time." "Thomas isn't coming," Gotti said. "Don't visit. Guy doesn't give a shit about his cousin. So we make an example. We show what happens when you steal from the Gambinos. Even if we can't get to you, we get to someone you're supposed to care about." So Sammy looked at John Simone, at this regular guy who'd done nothing wrong except be related to the wrong person. "He's a civilian," Sammy said quietly. "He's family to Thomas. That makes him fair game. John, this ain't right. The guy's got kids. You questioning me?" Gotti's voice went cold. Sammy was quiet. "Because questioning your captain was dangerous. Because in the life, orders were orders. Because Sammy had already killed 19 people. And what was one more? But something was different this time. Something about John Simone's terrified face. Something about the way he'd mentioned his kids. Something human that Sammy hadn't fully lost yet. "I'll handle it," Sammy said. "But give me a minute. Let me talk to him first." Gotti nodded. "Yeah, make it quick. This needs to be done tonight." After Gotti left, Sammy sat down in a chair across from John Simone. They were alone in the warehouse. Sammy's two associates were outside, giving them privacy. "What's your wife's name?" Sammy asked. John looked at him, confused. "What?" "Your wife. What's her name?" "Margaret." "Why?" "Your kids?" "Anthony and Lisa." "Why are you asking me this?" Sammy was quiet for a moment. "Because I want to know who you are. I want to see you as a person. Because what I'm about to do, I need to at least know who you were." John started crying again. "Please, please don't do this. I'll do anything. I'll give you every cent I have. I'll work for you. I'll do whatever you want. Just let me go home." "I can't let you go home," Sammy said. "You've seen us. You know our names. And my boss, he's decided you're the price for what Thomas did. But I didn't do anything." "I know." Sammy's voice was barely above a whisper. "I know you didn't. Then why? How can you do this? How can you kill someone who didn't do anything wrong?" Sammy didn't have an answer, sat there in silence. John kept crying, kept begging. "What do you want me to tell your wife?" Sammy finally asked. "When they find your body, when the police come to her, what do you want me to do?" John looked at Sammy through tears. "My shoes." "What?" "Leave my shoes. Wherever you put me. Leave my shoes visible. Margaret, she'll know. She'll understand I didn't run away. She'll know something happened to me. She'll know I wanted to come home." Sammy felt something break inside him. This man wasn't begging for his life anymore. He'd accepted he was going to die. He was just asking for one small thing, that his wife would know he hadn't abandoned her. "Your shoes," Sammy repeated. "Please, it's all I'm asking. Leave them where someone can find them. So Margaret knows. So she can tell the kids their father didn't leave them." Sammy nodded. "Okay, I'll leave your shoes." Thank you. John was crying harder now. Tell Margaret I love her. Tell my kids I love them. Tell them I'm sorry I couldn't come home. I can't tell them that, but I'll make sure your shoes are found. I promise. What Sammy Gravano did next has haunted him for the rest of his life. He took John Simone to a different location, an isolated area in Staten Island near the Waterwall. It was around 2 a.m., December 3rd, dark, cold, quiet. John didn't fight, didn't run, didn't beg anymore. He'd accepted what was coming. Can I say a prayer? John asked. Yeah. John closed his eyes, moved his lips silently. Sammy waited. When John opened his eyes, he looked at Sammy. Do it quick, John said. Please, don't make it hurt. Sammy pulled out his gun, a .38 revolver. His hand was shaking. In 19 previous murders, Sammy's hand had never shaken. But this time was different. I'm sorry, Sammy said. I know, John said. And then, my shoes. I won't forget. Sammy pulled the trigger. One shot, John Simone fell, dead before he hit the ground. Sammy stood there for a moment, looking at the body, at this innocent man who'd been killed for something his cousin did, at the shoes, those worn brown work boots. Sammy carefully removed the shoes from John's feet, placed them about 10 feet away from the body, in a spot where they'd be visible, positioned them so they'd be found. Then Sammy left, drove back to Queens, went home, sat in his car in the driveway for an hour, unable to go inside, unable to face his own wife and kids. John Simone's body was discovered on December 4th by a jogger. The shoes, positioned separately from the body, were immediately noticed by the police. They photographed them, bagged them as evidence. Margaret Simone was notified that her husband had been found. When the police showed her photographs of the scene, professionally taken, clinical, she saw the shoes positioned away from the body, and she understood. He wanted me to know, Margaret told the detective. He wanted me to know he didn't leave us. Someone took him. Someone killed him. But he made sure I'd know he wanted to come home. The detective didn't understand. How do you know that from the shoes? Because John never took off his boots outside. Never. He always came home with them on, took them off at the door for them to be off his feet, placed separately. He was sending me a message, telling me he loved us, telling me he tried to come home. The investigation went nowhere. No suspects, no witnesses, no evidence beyond the body and the mysteriously positioned shoes. Thomas Simone, the cousin who'd stolen the money and triggered everything, surfaced 2 months later in Philadelphia. He was arrested on unrelated charges, served 5 years, was released, and died in 2003 from a heart attack. He never knew his cousin had been killed because of him, or if he knew, he never said. Margaret Simone raised her 2 children alone, never remarried, kept those brown work boots in her closet for the rest of her life. When she died in 2018, at age 71, the boots were among her possessions, carefully preserved. In 1991, 6 years after John Simone's murder, Salvatore Gravano became a government witness. He testified against John Gotti and other members of the Gambino family. He admitted to 19 murders. When prosecutors asked him about each murder, Sammy gave details. Most of them, he described matter-of-factly, mob guys, drug dealers, people who'd signed up for the life. But when they asked about John Simone, Sammy's voice changed. Johnny Keys was different, Sammy said. He wasn't in the life. He was just a regular guy. Construction worker. Family man. We grabbed him because we couldn't find his cousin. Used him as bait. When the cousin didn't surface, we killed him anyway. Did you pull the trigger? Yes. Do you regret it? Sammy was quiet for a long time. Every day. Every single day. That murder. That's the one I can't justify. That's the one that showed me what I really was. Not a tough guy. Not a soldier. A murderer. Someone who killed an innocent man because I was following orders. Why did you position his shoes away from his body? To Sammy's eyes filled with tears. Because he asked me to. Because he wanted his wife to know he didn't abandon his family. Because even in his last moments, all he cared about was making sure his family knew he loved them. And you honored that request? It was the least I could do. I took his life. I could at least give him that one thing. Years later, in interviews, Sammy would say, if something made me quit the mob, if there was one moment where I knew I had to get out, it was Johnny Keys. I knew I'd crossed a line. I knew I'd done something I couldn't live with. It took me years to actually leave. But that murder planted the seed. That murder showed me I'd become something I hated. In 1995, 4 years after becoming a witness, Sammy requested permission from his handlers to meet with Margaret Simone. I want to apologize, Sammy told the FBI. I want to tell her what really happened. I want to tell her that her husband's last thoughts were of her and his kids. The FBI refused. It's too dangerous. She might go public. It could compromise other cases. And frankly, what good would it do? You killed her husband. An apology doesn't change that. She deserves to know he was thinking of her. She deserves to know he asked me to position his shoes so she'd understand. She already knows. The shoes told her that's enough. Sammy tried several more times to reach out. The FBI blocked it every time. In 2015, 20 years after he'd entered witness protection, Sammy wrote a letter to Margaret Simone. He never sent it, but he kept it. And years later, he read it in an interview. The letter said, Mrs. Simone, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I killed your husband in December 1985. I pulled the trigger. I'm the reason your kids grew up without a father. I'm the reason you spent years alone. I want you to know that John didn't suffer. I want you to know he was brave. I want you to know his last thoughts were of you and Anthony and Lisa. He asked me to position his shoes away from his body. He wanted you to know he hadn't abandoned you. He wanted you to understand he was trying to come home. I honored that request. It's the only decent thing I did that night. I'm sorry. Those words are meaningless, coming from me. But I'm sorry. I've lived with what I did every day for 30 years. I see John's face when I close my eyes. I hear him asking about his shoes. I remember the way he accepted his death with dignity I didn't deserve to witness. If there's a hell, I'm going there for what I did, and I'll deserve every moment of it. I'm sorry. Salvatore Gravano. The letter was never sent. Margaret Simone died in 2018 without ever hearing directly from the man who killed her husband. In 2019, Anthony Simone, John and Margaret's son, gave an interview to a journalist writing about unsolved mob murders. The journalist asked about the boots, about why they'd been positioned separately from John's body. My mother always said it was Dad's way of telling her he loved us, Anthony said. She said Dad knew he was going to die, knew whoever killed him wouldn't let him go. But he made sure, in his last moments, to send her a message. How did he send a message through the boots? My dad never took his boots off outside. Never. Always came home, took them off at the door, the boots to be off his feet, away from his body. Mom said that meant Dad was telling her he wanted to come home but couldn't, that someone stopped him, that he didn't leave willingly. Do you know who killed your father? I know it was mob-related. I know it had something to do with my father's cousin Thomas, who stole money from the wrong people. But the actual killer? No, the case is unsolved. If you could say something to the person who killed your father, what would it be? Anthony thought for a long time. I'd ask if my father said anything, if he mentioned us, if he was thinking of us at the end. And I'd want to know if my father was scared, if he suffered, if the person who did it had any humanity left. The journalist didn't tell Anthony that the killer, Sammy Gravano, had said all those things in interviews. Didn't tell him that Sammy had called the Johnny Keys, hit his greatest regret. Didn't tell him about the letter Sammy had written, but never sent. Some truths are too complicated to share. Some answers create more pain than they heal. Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano is 79 years old as of 2024. He lives in Arizona, out of witness protection, having served time for later drug charges. He gives interviews sometimes, talks about his mob years, sells his story. But when interviewers ask about his biggest regret, he always mentions John Simone. Johnny Keys was innocent, Sammy says. He didn't deserve what happened to him. He was just a regular guy, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, related to the wrong person. I killed him because I was following orders, and I've lived with that guilt every day since. Do you think about him? Every day. I see his face. I hear him asking me to leave his shoes. I remember the way he accepted his death. He showed more courage in his last moments than I'd shown in my entire life. If you could go back, I'd refuse the order, Sammy says without hesitation. I'd tell John Gotti no. I'd accept whatever consequences came from that. Because some orders shouldn't be followed. Some lines shouldn't be crossed. And killing an innocent man, that's a line that once you cross it, you can never come back. Somewhere in Arizona, in a house in a quiet neighborhood, Sammy Gravano lives with the memory of a pair of brown work boots, positioned 10 feet from a body. A final message from a dying man to the family he'd never see again. And every night, when Sammy closes his eyes, he sees those boots. And he remembers what he became, and what he can never undo. That wraps it up for today. On December 2nd, 1985, Sammy the Bull was ordered to kill Johnny Keys Simone, a construction worker, a family man, someone who'd never hurt anyone. John was grabbed because he looked like his cousin Thomas, who'd stolen from the Gambinos. Thomas never surfaced, so John died instead. His last request: leave my shoes where my wife can find them, so she knows I wanted to come home. Sammy honored that request, positioned the brown work boot 10 feet from the body. Margaret Simone saw the shoes and understood the message. And Sammy Gravano has lived with the guilt every day since. If something made me quit the mob, Sammy said years later, it was Johnny Keys. That hit showed me what I really was, a monster, one innocent man, one impossible choice, one act of mercy in an act of evil. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Subscribe for more stories where even monsters have moments of humanity. See you in the next one.